Today we're gonna do something from the Orchard Road, Plaza Singapura, one of the statue right in front of the mall. So let's go. Some of you may know I actually run a group on Facebook called the Singapore Sketches, and this month's theme is actually photos that I took from Orchard Road, and this particular photo that we are going to do today is from this series. Plaza Singapura is a very popular mall in Singapore, right in the heart of Orchard Road, or maybe I should say at the beginning of Orchard Road, and it's one of my favorite malls as well. If you want to follow along, I will leave a link to the photographed below on Pexel. You can download that and you can also basically follow along with this tutorial. I will also leave a link to the Facebook group in the description below if you would like to visit us. It's actually meant for Singapore sketchers or Singapore resident sketchers, or people who have lived in Singapore but who are now abroad and want to do a bit of sketching to remember Singapore. Alright, back to the sketch. As you can see that I have essentially follow my own advice, do the outline first and then the details after you have finished the outline. The second thing I'm doing now is basically putting in the greens. It's a mixture of lemon yellow, green gold and phthalo green blue shades. I decided to do the background first, playing with texture. In this case I'm using a bamboo stick to draw while the puddle of paint is still wet. I'm also using slightly more muted color, in other words slightly toned green, in other words green that's mixed with a bit of brown, dirty green if you like, or dirty yellow, and dirty blue and so on. This is just to push the colors to the back somewhat. If you use a very bright color for background, then you are going to empower the background with too much color saturation that will compete with your foreground. So you really want to mute it down to make sure that it doesn't compete and take attention away from your foreground. The other thing that I'm doing is to create shape that runs across on the left and right of the statue. That will also push the statue to the front, because you have running shapes that are continuous to your mind, but actually they are distinct and broken shape and behind your statue. What it does is that it does push the statues to the fore. As I'm painting the statue, I'm leaving a lot of white. As you can see in the photograph, a lot of reflection on the resin. I presume it's resin, some form of resin that is used to create the sculpture. Lots of reflection, lots of mixture of colors. I use a range of reds. In fact, most of the reds that I have, I've thrown in, including some of the yellow and orange as well, to create interest and avoid monotony, if you like. Same thing with the purple. I have a mixture of a few variation, including throwing in more blues and also putting in some of the pure purple, if you like. The idea to mimic this reflective resin is having soft edges, strong contrast, and leave lots of highlights or paper white. And I think that should do it basically. We're now ready for the bigger statue, the red color statue. Same thing, throw in lots of red. I have Queen Rose, I have Permanent Alizarin Crimson. I even dab in a bit of the blue, French Ultramarine, and that gives it the high nice contrast. I draw with it as well. I basically leave very thin lined and also allowing mixture of colors to let it blend. Moving on to the yellow statue, I'm now mixing dirty yellow, in essence throwing in Queen Gold as well as Queen Burnt Orange, and letting it melt wet on wet. As you can see, I'm going in with my water brush as well as I'm using hot press Bao Hong 300 gram paper, which I think is good enough for most used. It's rated as Academy, but I find it is actually pretty good, and I really like it as well. Not perfect, but it's pretty good for used. In any case, it's better than non-cotton watercolor papers. Anyway, as you can see, I'm just following my own sort of description. I'm following the same formula. Right now, I'm just giving it some architectural elements of the building, going back in for a second layer of the green to make it more sort of interesting. Single layer is a little bit too simplistic, and going in with darks as well for the blue statue in front, making the second layer after the first one has more or less dried up somewhat. I normally don't wait for it to 100% dry because it doesn't make sense. I do want some soft edges, so the only easy way to do it is to leave some of the paint wet. So when you put in the second layer, some parts of the wet colors will then melt into the first layer. Same thing with the green statue, stronger version of green, and I'm always just reading what the actual color is on the photograph to make sure that I'm not too far off from being at least trying to mimic the reality that I see in the photograph. It's coming along nicely. I'm just checking in with the photograph every now and then, making sure that I still have somewhat of the values on point. Value is more important than the color, as I always say. It's very important to make sure you check the value, but also remember that watercolor is darker when it's wet. It usually lighten up by about 20% when it's dry, so there's a bit of adjustment in your head when you're looking at the wet watercolor, because when it's right, when it's wet, it's wrong, right? Confusing, but anyway, you know what I'm trying to say. So I think while I'm waiting for it to dry, and I put my name, and then I have my white gel pen. Any white gel pen will do, basically, just to get back some of the highlights that I've lost, to indicate that there's such a reflective surface from the statue, and you can see that the statue is beginning to pop with the white being put in. I'm being very lax and free with a lot of the white gel, getting back some of the reflection that I've lost in the process. So there we go, we're almost there with almost all the touch-up. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. I think it's we're hoping that the pandemic will really get over really soon. We're seeing some of the travels are coming back, but with Omicron linger around, it's kind of scuppered some of the plans. But anyway, you guys stay safe wherever you are, and do sketch and paint and be creative and all that stuff. It is important to make sure that we continue to enjoy our art and stay healthy mentally as well. So that's it for now. This is Whee Teck out.